A lot of what happens online now takes some powerful ideas like emotional patterns, and we look at the personality types that are out there. The influencers, these are the influencers that accidentally label people. So what do I mean by that? When an influencer is labeling someone as lazy, or you need to be this way or you need to be that way, what that can do is create an inner civil war in their audience. In other words, their audience is like, they kind of go back and forth with this emotional tug of war. Now, here's what I want to share with you. My approach is different. I focus on how a person actually functions in real life, how they function with pressure, stress, distraction, and how they handle their emotions, especially where attention is concerned in regards to ADHD. So the goal on my channel is not to hype or blame things. It's understanding how our behavior can be used to design our lives into a different direction. And that's how I look at it. So today will be a list of small moves that you can do if you have ADHD. Now, I myself have coached one of my clients that has ADHD, also social anxiety on top of it. And we worked together on this, and this is what I actually came up with. Like, I came up with everything on this list that I'm sharing with you today, and it came directly from coaching session we had together. So this is something you can follow. I'm giving you some solid moves, and you can use it as a structure that's going to help you rebuild your focus and, of course, support your internal control from the inside. And it's going to be one practical move at a time, because several small moves start to add up. Several small changes in your life start to add up, and they become more stable. They also become repeatable, and they're not emotional anymore. And the fun part is some of these old patterns become temporary. Because instead of fighting the old ways of doing things, you can simply replace what you've always fight. And I need you to understand that. So these are the small moves for resilience. So if you have ADHD and you want to become more resilient, this is a great way to do it. So I'm here to share with you the very first one. The first one is cold exposure. You're doing multiple tiny shocks of cold temperature. So when you splash your face with real cold water, or if you take a 30-second shower, make sure it hits the base of the skull, by the way, right where the soft part of the skull and the bone meet, right there. It's a sweet spot. And put your hands in ice water. You can do that. Now, why? Why do we care to actually do this? For one, when we get the physical stress of cold, norepinephrine will go up, okay? It'll totally spike that. Now, the fun part is it improves your focus, and it gives your brain that moment to tolerate that discomfort and train your nervous system to deal. This is why some people do ice bath. They do it for that reason. Now, why am I not a fan of ice baths? Because based on what I said earlier, I like when the ice water is hitting the brain stem. And there's a reason for that. 2 words, fight or flight. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, the second one is delayed gratification. Slightly. Okay, not over the top. 30 seconds to 60 seconds. Because what you're doing is you're learning to train your prefrontal cortex of your brain. So how do you do this? Well, real simple. If you're going to eat a snack, and it happens to be like a sugary snack or something that's a treat, give yourself 60 seconds, set your timer on your phone, and delay going for it. Train yourself that delay. Now, you might think, oh, well, that's torture. Not really when you're considering it's strengthening your prefrontal cortex. Yeah, I remember prefrontal cortex likes to be impulsive. So what we're trying to do is train that delayed gratification, that build that strength in the prefrontal cortex over your attention and over your actual impulse. And by the way, if you do breath work, that will increase it over time. Now, that being said, if you don't want to do a snack, you could also do it when you're checking your phone. So you can delay yourself 60 seconds. Another one is posture. Challenge your posture a little bit. You can stand instead, right? Standing is good. So for example, if you have a computer that can elevate, you can stand up and do work on a computer that way. Just make sure it's ergonomic and you adjust posture. You can sit for 2 minutes while doing certain tasks, and you can do it on a wobbly cushion. And the whole point of doing it that way is you have to maintain your abdominals, your core, in order to keep still. You can do that. It's fine. But when we have these small moves of uncomfortability, what it does is it engages your core when you're sitting on that wobbly cushion, and it gives you that ability to become more aware, self-aware of your body, and it improves that alertness. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, that's okay. There's other ways to do it. One of the things that I actually do as a posture challenge is, this comes from the Japanese martial arts, and it's called Seiza. So with Seiza is going on your knees. So if you were to kneel down on the ground, it's great for mobility. As long as you have strong knees, you do that. So what I'll do is, instead of sitting at the computer, I'll move the chair away from the computer and kneel on the ground. And I'm just at the right height to reach so it's uncomfortable, but it's a posture challenge. All right. It allows you to have that discomfort while maintaining focus. That's what it does. It's like, okay, there's this discomfort and this, rewiring of comfort, the discomfort levels. Number 4, you can push yourself to do 1 minute plank. So I call it the 1 minute plank all day. So if you have a day off from your job, you can just do 1 minute planks all day. 1 minute plank all day challenge. 1 minute planks all day long. You'll be exhausted by the end of the day, but the cool part is you could do it whenever you want. You can set an alarm, and when the alarm goes off, you're just going to do it. You do the plank, and it's amazing. I love planking. I plank a lot. I do a great deal of planks for myself. But you could also do a wall sit. So if you look up wall sit, you can grab those. That's putting your back against the wall and sliding down the wall until you're in a chair position and you're pushing your legs and your body is going against the wall. So as you push your legs away from you, your back presses the wall. And you're going to feel your thighs and your psoas muscles start burning. So you could do that wall sit. You could do 1 minute wall sits, 1 minute wall planks. You could do the all day challenge for 1 minute planks. You could do some jumping jacks just mid-session. Get up and do some work and just start banging out some jumping jacks. Just do 10. You don't have to go crazy, but just do interval. The whole point of doing these tiny, small interval moves is to interrupt your pattern. Like, I want you to understand that. You are running patterns. It's not that you are, it's not that you have a pattern, it's that you are a pattern. So what you're doing is creating new patterns. So you start to interrupt your old patterns, and you do that with the planks, the jumping jacks, the wall sits. You do that. Now, why does this matter? Why should we care? Because when you start to fall into those hyper-focused moments, doing some physical activity is going to interrupt. And the beauty of that is it's going to tap into dopamine in the brain and do a complete overhaul of that in the moment. It's basically keeping your attention I'm going to put it simple like that. Now, another thing we can do is we can control our exposure to the amount of information we're taking in. So you can engineer your environment. If you want to read more, start putting a book on your pillow. So you have to lay down at night, you grab the book. It becomes part of it, okay? If you want to do push-ups, buy yourself an old school alarm clock and throw it under your bed, because when the alarm clock goes off, you have to get out of bed and you have to get on the floor, and you actually have to pull that alarm clock out and turn it off. And then while you're on the floor, you can do the push-ups, right? Okay, so this is what you can actually do. You can do that instead of rushing to your phone, which people will do. They will wake up, open their eyes, and rush to their phone right off the bat. That's what they'll do. Now, in this case, we want to control that exposure. So you can read a paragraph that's difficult by leaving your book on your pillow. You can do a jigsaw puzzle. You can leave a jigsaw puzzle lying around and do a couple steps on the puzzle once in a while. You can actually have a chessboard lying around, and you can move a chess piece on both sides. Like, you can play one person, two sides, and do that. So when you do these things, having this little bit of stress, if you will, this different exposure. When you do a math problem, when you solve a puzzle or do a Rubik's Cube, you're training your brain to increase the tolerance of things that are boring or frustrating. So if you do have any frustrating tasks, you can do them. You can do them without actually zoning out. That's where it gets interesting. So you can have that exposure. So I want you to control that exposure to a lot of the frustration that you might experience, the cognitive stress that your brain actually has. So you want to train that brain to tolerate that boring or frustrating task without having to zone out. Another thing also is small moves towards your senses and actual noise, the sound of noise. So you can get a white noise machine, which might actually help you sleep. It's very good. You can listen to some low-level static on YouTube without some of the advertising. They're out there. Be prepared. They're going to come up in the middle somewhere. Okay. You could have some background sounds. There are some ASMR or other types of sounds that you can listen to for 3 to 5 minutes. So when you have why would we do this, though? Like, if you have ADHD, like, why would you do this? Well, when we have small amounts of sensory discomfort, what it does is it actually improves your ability to focus in that chaotic point, and which is very common for ADHD brain. Okay, very important. Now, when it comes to learning, you're learning something new, you can also get into those uncomfortable postures while you're learning, okay? Sit upright without leaning, and you could actually get in that uncomfortable posture. You don't need any headphones or anything like that, but you're doing a learning session, and you can make yourself a little bit more uncomfortable while you're learning. So, for example, you can do a wall sit while trying to read a paragraph. Okay, you'd be surprised at what that looks like. You can do a plank and have the book on the floor. As long as it stays open, you can actually read the book as you're planking. You can do that one page or a couple paragraphs, a couple lines, whatever you're able to do. And this is pretty amazing. So why do we care, though? Why do we care to do it? You start to become more aware. When we have these little tiny moments of awareness, you're not relying always on some form of sense or sensory crutch, if you will. You're expanding your focus and the endurance focus. So when you're uncomfortable while learning, that will move your brain into focus and enduring that process. So it's focus endurance, if you will. So do the plank with the 1 minute of reading. It's very good. You can do that. Now, fasting is a part of it too. You can do fasting. Just, make sure you talk to your doctor before you do. Drinking or eating in terms of water. You can do water fasting. You can do fasting food. Talk to healthcare practitioners. Now, when you are dealing with fasting, which I fast a lot myself, you're going to get that stress of energy. And when you're mildly hunger, and you have like mild hunger or some thirst, norepinephrine gets triggered. And what will happen is your attention and alertness will totally snap in place at that moment in time. So that's an important one. Now, another thing I would recommend, this is going to be the last one, is task switching. Give yourself some pressure, some mental pressure, and switch tasks. So set a 5 to 10 minute timer to switch from a preferred task to a task that you do not like. You don't like to do the dishes? Go do it. But switch and then come back. By the way, when the alarm goes off, you're like, okay, cool. Like, don't watch the alarm. Be focused on what it is you're doing. The moment the alarm goes off, it's like you've been set free. At that point, all right, I'm set free. I can go back to doing what I formerly did. That's okay. So ADHD brains, they resist monotony. So when you have these tiny moves of uncomfortable transitions, what that does is it makes your brain more flexible. Now, if you are a social person, and you're going to be around a lot of social situations, you can have a conversation with a complete stranger. That's okay, all right? You can just have a small conversation. Find a conversation piece, like an object or an item you can have a conversation piece about, and do it with a total stranger. And when you have these tiny moves of social discomfort, it creates more emotional resistance with you. And it also is a tolerance for rejection or embarrassment as well. So you're developing that tolerance for it. Because what you'll discover is when you talk to people about a conversation piece, that they may be more inclined to give you tons of information about them, and they're not rejecting you, and they're not looking at you, they're not judging you, they're just simply expressing themselves. And it's a tolerance for you being rejected or like you feel embarrassed by any means. And that's all I'm going to say on this particular episode. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to check out my YouTube.